navigating situationships at different life stages.
While situationships can strike at any age, the motivations, challenges, and fallout often look quite different depending on what life phase you're navigating. Whether you're a wide-eyed 20-something just dipping your toes into the dating waters, or a jaded divorcee trying to reclaim your groove, these ambiguous entanglements bring their own unique pitfalls. So let's break it down by the key life stages to help prepare you for what kind of situationship insanity you may encounter.
The horny college crowd.
These prime situationshippers seem to do it for equal parts fear of commitment and simple convenience. After all, acquiring the commitment label means having to actually put in boyfriend/girlfriend effort, and who has time for that between building that resume and raging until last call? The typical college situationship has all the hallmarks weeks of banal Tinder flirting, leading to occasional meetups for Netflix and casual groping sessions. Constant mixed signals, since neither party wants to risk rocking the friends with Benny's boat. And a whole lot of alcohol-fueled denial that this is basically just an excuse to get your casual sex fix. Of course, what these 20-something swindlers often don't account for is the stigma hookup feels. Hurt and emotional whiplash abound as one explores their intimacy boundaries, while the other secretly wants the fairy tale ending. Still, youth tends to be resilient. Most of these situations just fizzle out between semester changes and summer breaks.
The authentic adulting avoidance.
So you've secured your degree and career, but still find yourself repeatedly cycling through situationship limbo throughout your late 20s and 30s. Often with a dash of professional and financial stability, this breed of situationshipper is simply allergic to authentic vulnerability. Rather than dealing with the big kid commitments of finding a life partner and starting a family, these developmentally stunted individuals would rather dip in and out of endless talking stages whenever their dating dopamine fix requires a top-up. All of the flaky future, faking, and inconsistent validation, with zero intentions of progressing beyond a convenient semi-relationship safety net. And for those situationships who do actually want something deeper, well, they're left dealing with frequent pangs of loneliness, anxiety over the ambiguity, and constant self-doubt about being enough to earn a real commitment. It's a vicious cycle of tepid intimacy and intermittent soul-crushing.
The Disillusioned Divorcee.
After years or even decades of committing to the same relationship routine, the dust has settled on your divorce from hell. You've grieved, you've healed, and now you're eager to test the waters of new romantic connections. Cue the inevitable onslaught of commitment-phobic Klingons, eager to exploit the vulnerability of this life transition. Across their flirt-going exchanges, love-bombing texts, and future faking manipulation, these situationship predators will cunningly tap into the divorcee's greatest fears and desires. One week, they'll mirror longing for a passionate soulmate and deeper connection. The next, they'll create distance by mocking any hints of moving too fast and unrealistic relationship expectations. It's an endless game of push-pull, hot/cold, and undermining of already fragile post-divorce confidence. For the divorcee, these constant ambiguities and validating breadcrumbs become agonizing to navigate as they rebuild their identity. They question whether they're overreacting, being too jaded from past hurts, or simply expecting too much, too soon after divorce. And that self-doubt is exactly what keeps them hooked into these repeat toxic cycles.
The situationship sandwich generation.
Perhaps trickier still are those who find themselves caught betwixt two life pressures, still romantically unfulfilled in their dating lives, while also caring for children or aging parents on the home front. This perpetual sandwiched state makes these situationshippers particularly vulnerable to the intoxicating highs and periodic reinforcement trap. See, these individuals are likely craving passionate human connection more than ever from the constant life stresses. So even the most inconsistent or lackluster situationship offers temporary solace, a thrilling reprieve from climbing off the rinds and repeat treadmill of caretaking and thankless daily sacrifice. But of course, they also possess little time or bandwidth to constantly analyze mixed signals or call out the stunted emotional availability of their quasi-mates. So these persistent hot/cold cycles continue unabated and unquestioned, if only to preserve the fleeting moments of ease amidst the chaos. Even dead situationships get kept on life support through sheer force of convenience.
The golden-ish years of dating hell.
Last but certainly not least, there are the senior situationship snaphus. For those either widowed or coming out of longer-term committed marriages, the modern dating scene can feel alternately both exciting and utterly disorienting. For many, situationships may arise from simple unfamiliarity with how much romance has evolved since their courting heydays. Whereas their generation was conditioned for quickly escalating intimacy toward marriage, Today's ambiguities and languishing in undefined talking phases can feel like whiplash. The golden ager struggles not to come off too desperate for clarity and security, even as they get repeatedly strung along for months, under the guise of taking it slow or other empty reassurances from their situation mates. For others, an unwillingness to earnestly commit again may fuel their participation in these ambiguous romantic battles. Those with lingering grief over deceased or divorced spouses often relish situationshipping as a way to scratch their intimacy itches without needing to fully reinvest their hearts. They can have companionship, physicality, and pseudo-connection while forever keeping that emotional distance. Regardless of impetus, though, these senior situationships bear their own unique traumas and boundaries that require deft care. There can be shame around expressing desire at an older age, bitterness over wasted time and emotional investment, and legitimate fears over whether closure or commitment is still attainable. No wonder so many just resign themselves to perpetual romantic purgatory. While hardly an exhaustive analysis, this tour of the situationship life cycle highlights how these pseudo-relationships can go awry and metastasize at various ages and stages. From the reckless naivete of youth to the jaded burnout of seniority, intentionally ambiguous romantic bonds have a way of pervading every phase, bringing their own nuanced flavors of confusion, disappointment, and self-doubt. The constants, though, seem to be stagnation, settling for counterintuitive intimacy, and a gnawing sense of being kept at arm's length from your full desires and deservedness. So whether situationships show up in your academia this semester or your midlife, remain vigilant to not let their chaos become your new normal. True belonging and love aren't meant to linger in ambiguity's shadow forever.
Transition out of unhealthy situationship.
Okay, so you've realized you're trapped in an unhealthy, unfulfilling situationship. Maybe those red flags are hitting a little too close to home. Well, the first step is acknowledging you deserve better than those toxic crumbs. It's time to rip off that emotional band-aid, even though it's going to sting like the dickens at first. Right now, you're like a frog slowly getting boiled alive. You've got to leap out of that pot.
Here are 5 tips for finally breaking free from situationship.
1. Go cold turkey. The only way to successfully get that person out of your system is to administer a full detox. That means blocking them everywhere and having zero physical contact for a long time. Out of sight, out of mind. 2. Reactivate your first life. When you're absorbed in a situationship, that tends to become your sole focus and identity. Not anymore. It's time to rediscover old hobbies, friends, and interests you let slide. A busy, fulfilling life is the best defense against obsessing. 3. Call a code red. Whether it's hosting an epic movie night, booking a last-minute getaway, or finally taking that cooking class, you need to call in the reinforcements and positive distractions. Situationship slumps are no time to be alone. 4. Find your bounce-back power anthem. Cue up that song that makes you feel like a total badass boss for getting prepped to re-enter the dating scene. Might I suggest Sorry Not Sorry by Demi Lovato? Blast that rocky training montage music and get hyped to take your power back. 5. Get petty. Okay, I'm mostly kidding here, but maybe a temporary social media purge isn't the worst idea for some closure. You earned that pretty spite after being strung along. Though, as always, don't do anything regrettable you can't walk back. Overall, be gentle with yourself as you heal from that emotional whiplash. Getting situationshipped can really bruise the ego and capacity for trust. Just know that with time and rebuilding your confidence, you can break that toxic cycle once and for all.
Situationship recovery, healing, and redefining your boundaries.
Look, I get it. Even after escaping a soul-depleting situationship, it's scary to gamble on getting hurt again. But you owe it to yourself to reset your romantic expectations and standards beyond those unhealthy patterns. The truth is, no matter how much you enjoyed the honeymoon thrill at first, those situationship dynamics don't actually serve you in the long run. Settling for crumbs and half-assed affection isn't a sustainable way to meet your needs for intimacy and commitment.
So here are 5 tips for finally attracting what you really want and deserve.
1. Get radically honest with yourself. Take a beat and do some uncomfortable self-inventory. What were the deeper voids or shortcomings that situationship was temporarily patching over? Low self-esteem? Fear of being alone? Until you unpack those, you'll remain stuck. 2. Raise those standards, stat. Make a written list of all the non-negotiables you require from a partner going forward. Things like consistent communication, long-term goal alignment, emotional availability, and so on. Etch these in stone as your forever commandments. 3. commit to instantaneous boundaries. As soon as you detect a whiff of shady commitment-phobic behavior or breadcrumbing, you cut it off with no second chances. It's not about playing games, you're just prioritizing your self-worth. 4. Date with a vengeance. I don't mean literally key someone's car, or maybe I do. No judgment here. But you need to get out there with a fierce, purposeful resolve to not settle for anything less than what you want. No more settling for maybe lands. 5. Unpack those traumas. Whether it's journaling, therapy, or even just ranting to friends, you need to do the inner work to heal from getting strung along. Dig up those situationship corpses, give them a decent burial, and reinforced boundaries going forward. At the end of the day, leading with vulnerability and standards is the only way to bypass those endless talking stages and find what you actually deserve. You are the prize, and situationships were just distractions along your journey. If you've made it this far, you're probably feeling pretty overwhelmed and exhausted by the situationship drama. Trust me, I get it, those ambiguous romantic rabbit holes can quickly descend into mind-bending spirals of confusion and heartache. But as chaotic as being strung along can be, the true power for transformation and leveling up lies in the other side, because you've now glimpsed behind the curtain of mixed signals and inconsistent validation. You know what it feels like to constantly question yourself, your worth, and the depth of care you're receiving. And no one should have to endure those destabilizing mind games disguised as romance. The good news is that situationship struggle can be one of the most illuminating experiences for getting crystal clear on what you do and don't want from an actual partner going forward. It shows you the power of honoring your boundaries, cultivating self-love, and removing temporal mates who can't make you a priority. So don't be discouraged if extricating yourself from that relentless hot/cold cycle feels overwhelming right now. The most empowering step is already acknowledging you deserve to be more than an option or placeholder to someone. With self-work and not settling for situationship scraps, you can absolutely manifest the fulfilling, committed partnership you crave. The exit is yours to take whenever you're ready. No more lingering in limbo.